evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Omar Fritz Eriksson, and I am the Deputy Secretary General of IALA, as well as the Dean of the IALA Worldwide Academy. I would like to ask you to keep your cameras off and keep your microphone muted during the presentations in order to conserve bandwidth and so that we can hear the presenters what they have to say without interruption. Thank you. So before we go any further, I would like to announce that the IALA IGO process has just passed a very important milestone. For more than a decade now, IALA has been working on changing the status of the association from being an NGO, non-governmental organization, to an IGO, intergovernmental organization. Last year, a diplomatic conference hosted by our national member in Malaysia reached an agreement between 50 coastal states on the text of the Convention on the International Organization for Marine Aids to Navigation. And in January this year, the government of France signed the convention as its depositary, and it is now open for signature by all United Nations governments. So please, if you meet somebody from your government, remind them of this new convention that they should immediately sign the convention, because once we have 30 signed and ratified signatures, we change our status to an intergovernmental organization. So, having said that, I welcome you all here today to this series of webinars delivered by IALA to a wider audience. So far in this series, we have covered a number of interesting topics which have been well received. And this particular webinar is the second in a series of 4, which will inform you about the most recent outcomes of the work of our 4 technical committees. The IALA technical committees have a 4-year work cycle where they put a lot of effort into developing IALA publications such as standards, recommendations, and guidelines. And in the context of marine aids to navigation, the IALA recommendations tell us what one should do when providing marine aids to navigation services, and our guidelines tell you how to do it, how to go about delivering such services, and they describe the best practices around the world. Once the committees have developed a document, it is approved by our council, after which it is ready for publication, and that is the case with a few documents which we will talk about today. So now, to give you an idea of today's program, it will be about the work of our Engineering and Sustainability Committee. You will be briefed about the structure and work of the committee, as well as recent outcomes which have now been published or sent on. We have 3 speakers today, and I will introduce them all in one go now, so the presentation can flow uninterrupted. So the first speaker will be Mr. Simon Milliard. Simon started out in his career as a marine engineer cadet with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary Service in 1973, the last century. And in 2008, he joined Trinity House Lighthouse Service, where he was head of engineering and operations until 2019, where he retired. Since 2010, he has represented Trinity House at IALA, and Simon is now the chairman of the Engineering and Sustainability Committee. He will present the committee structure and provide an overview of recommendation 1020 on terrestrial radio navigation systems, an output of the latest meeting of the committee. The second speaker will be Mr. Jamie Alvarez, who is a nautical and maritime transport engineer and is now employed as a technical officer at Ayala at the Secretariat, where he is the secretary of 2 of our committees. Jamie will give a presentation on the committee virtual meeting arrangements in this day and age, and later he will provide some information about our work on the challenges of using radars in busy harbors, as well as a relatively new development called enhanced radar positioning. Our third and final speaker today is Mr. Malcolm Nicholson, who is the Global Product Manager at Sealight, one of our industrial members. And Malcolm is also key to educating ATON managers through Sealight's Global Masterclass and technical training programs. Malcolm has been attending Ayala for nearly 20 years, and for the last 8 years he has been the chairman of the Engineering Committee Working Group on Lights and Vision. And he's also the Industrial Members Committee representative to the Ayala Policy Advisory Panel. And Malcolm will present an overview of the of guideline 1135 on effective intensity of flashing light, a very interesting topic. So we will now proceed with the presentations, and we will have a questions and answer session at the end of the webinar. So during the presentations, I would like to ask you to write your comments or questions in the chat area, in the chat box, and we will attend to these after the presentation has been made. You can also, during the question and answer session, raise your virtual hand in Teams if you want to take the floor. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available on the Ayala YouTube channel for everyone to see. So the first speaker is Mr. Simon Milliard. Simon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Omar. And I will now endeavour to take the screen. Okay, can you see the first slide there? It says, Virginia, can you confirm that?
Everything is okay, yep.
Okay, good stuff, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Omar, and good morning and good afternoon to everybody, and especially to those I know and recognise from the committee, and a warm welcome to those who are new to Ayala today. So the Engineering and Sustainability Committee is divided into 4 working groups, and here they are listed. And I'll very briefly run through them. So light and vision physics, technical knowledge and sustainability, radio navigation services, and heritage and legacy. So working group 1 is chaired by Malcolm Nicholson from Sealight, who we will hear from, and Vice Chairman is Dr. Alwyn Williams from Trinity House in the UK. And this working group looks at everything that the human eye can see in the way of light and shape, and produces a fascinating array of guidelines and recommendations from lights measurement, colour, how it's perceived, and shape and day marks, what size they should be, for what range. And so everything the eye can see is covered in working group 1. And as with all the working groups and all the committees, it attracts world experts in this field. Working group 2, which we refer to as technical knowledge and sustainability. And this covers the following areas here, from power generation and storage, so solar panels, environmentally friendly generation, floating aids, large buoys, small buoys, moorings. It looks at sustainability and environmental responsibility, which is gaining stature in today's world, and we have some good guidance and recommendations on these topics. It also covers safety, telemetry, and design and maintenance. So an interesting array of detailed topics there, and is currently chaired by Jörg Unterweger and Peter Schneider from the University German Waterways, actually. 3, Radio Navigation Services. Here, this is chaired by Dr. Alan Grant from Trinity House and Michelle Hopper from WSP German Waterways and Shipping, and Michelle is with us today, so we may hear from him later if I get any too technical questions. And here we're looking at differential GNSS, resilient PLC, and the development of R mode, raycom positioning, and other topics in the radio navigation field. This is a really interesting working group with many of the world's experts in the field. Working group 4 is heritage and legacy, although interestingly we are looking to change, but we do not know if we will yet, to change this to heritage and culture. And here we look at heritage lighthouses, their complementary use, and the promotion of cultural importance, really spurred on by the Incheon Declaration that we signed in South Korea in 2018, and promoted by the South Korean authorities, looking at the value of the cultural importance of heritage lighthouses. And, this, along with the chair there, Peter Hill, and Professor Chung-Hoon Kim from Daecheon University in the Republic of Korea, have really breathed life into this working group, and it brings a new perspective on view aging estates. Particularly at the Engineering and Sustainability Committee, we have about 90 members from about 30 countries. All are experts in their field. Some are national members, that's the authorities, some are industrial members, and some are specialists. And they all bring knowledge and experience to the committee, and are a fine bunch of people whose company I thoroughly enjoy. So the outputs, what do we produce at the Engineering Committee? IALA is a knowledge organisation, and we produce papers, as Omar has said, in the form of recommendations, guidelines, training courses, and manuals. And the Engineering and Sustainability Committee look at all of these. We review the training courses for the Worldwide Academy, and they are passed in the plenary session for approval. And we also support and edit the manuals in the form of the nav guide and the complementary use lighthouse conservation. So that really is the work of the committee. And I'm now going to hand over to Jaime, who will talk about the virtual meeting arrangements.
Okay. Thanks, Simon. Thank you very much. I will introduce very briefly how has been the improvements in our website today with the N13 Committee. So you are now very familiar of the website. You know that in meeting docs you can go directly to the dashboard. We have a new portrayal of the dashboard now with here the committees, the different committees, the different tabs we have as file share, calendar, presentation, committee structure, and also to not lose the older documents and older calendar and action items. You can access to the other committee, to the other season here in order. So let's go to the Eng committee. You will find here the resources. Some input paper has already been uploaded to the IALA website, so you can go to the N13 inputs document through this link. Then you can go also to the working documents and other documents related to the N12 committee through this file sharing area. The file sharing area will be also used for the following N13 documents, working documents. So don't miss also this link. We are going to upload the action plan for these N13 sessions, as usual, the documents for approval with the notice of what document is available for silent approval. And you will have this new view of the ENCH meeting. And here through this link, you can go directly to the meetings related to the N13 session, but also you can have the overall view of the meetings and of the different committee through this calendar. Is the all committees calendar. So here, for instance, starting on 1st of March, the INAF 27 plenary, and you can access directly to the different meetings already posted for INAF, because it's the first committee arriving. You will be able to enter directly to the meeting, clicking in this button, clicking here. You will have also access to the organizer and so on, and the contact details. So at the end, we have improved the vision of the participants around and across all the committees, and I hope it will add your benefits at the end of this session. So thank you, Simon. I come back to you. Simon?
You're muted, Simon. Simon Milliard. Yeah, there you are.
I'm coming back. Thank you. Share the screen. What are you seeing on the screen here, guys?
We see a revised guideline on effective intensity, 1135.
Thank you. So over to you, Malcolm.
Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world. It's a good to be back on board. I've only got a couple of slides here. I'm pleased to say a couple of my working group are on the call as well, and they contributed to this guideline. And effectively, this guideline it removed all the things that were in the original recommendation on effective intensity, which was formerly E200 Part 4. And so that has become a recommendation in its own right. And this is the guidance that goes with it. So if you could just move on to the next slide. The recommended method remains the modified Allard method. If you could just, thank you. Remains the modified Allard method, which uses the convolution method shown there in equation 2. But the good news for you all is you can still use equation 1 there, the Blondel-Ray equation, which is a bit of a simpler form to deal with if you can't use mathematical data and measurement data and spreadsheets to convolve your measurement results with MAM. You can still perform your calculations using Blondel-Ray. The two methods match each other. And so if you're looking for a 5-mile light and you have a peak intensity of 100 candela, for a half a second flash, you're going to end up with 83 candelas. So if you just knock on to the next slide, we've actually included a very handy table for you all that has various different flash profiles and typical flash lengths up to 5 seconds. And there I said you'll see that for a rectangular shape flash, for a 0.5 second, you merely multiply your peak intensity by that factor there, 0.833. So if you have 100 candelas and you multiply it by 0.833, you get 83.3 candelas, which is a good 5-mile light. Of course, the guideline goes into much more in depth. And if you'll indulge me, I shall just read the description of effective intensity of a rhythmic light. which is the range at which an observer may just see a light flash, may be described in terms of a single parameter, which is called the effective intensity of the flash. The eye does not analyze the variations of the luminous flux incident upon it during the course of a brief flash, but reacts to the total visual impression of the flash of light. In particular, when the flash can just be seen, it is possible to obtain a quantitative measure of the effectiveness of its light by comparing it with a steady light, which is also just seen under the same conditions at the same range and by the same observer. Sufficient consistency is obtained in such observations to permit the evaluation of effective intensity of the flash as the intensity of the fixed light, which it is equivalent for detection at the threshold of visual perception. Now it goes on and on and on, but it's very, very well written. It's quite in depth. It's not overwhelming. So please do download it and give it a good read. And I hope you enjoy it.
Well,
thank you for that. Thank you very much for that, and maybe we can get some questions on that at the end of the session here. So moving on to the new recommendation on terrestrial radio navigation systems, N13, which was approved at Council following the meeting. And this recommendation recognizes the need for resilient positioning, navigation, and timing, and that signals from GNSS and RNSS satellites are vulnerable to interference, whether intentional or not. And given that no single PNT source is perfect, so multiple dissimilar PNT sources are recommended to achieve a resilient position, navigation, and timing signal. And this document recommends that IR members and authorities first of all consider the provision of terrestrial radio navigation systems, terrestrial being non-satellite, which may include regional systems such as ULARAN and/or R-mode, and potentially new systems yet to be developed, and supported by local systems such as enhanced radar positioning. And it also recommends that suppliers and providers should consider the appropriate IR guidelines in the operation of such terrestrial navigation, radio navigation systems. And it asks that nations will work collaboratively with neighbouring IR members and authorities, which will provide a more harmonious service for the area. So that really sums it up. It's a fairly straightforward recommendation, but trying to move up, mitigate the vulnerabilities of relying solely on GNSS. And, as we see work coming from Working Group 3, there is a lot of interest and work going on to providing alternative PNT systems for the manner, which in turn will play out, we believe, in the autonomous shipping world. Okay, thank you for that. And now we move on back to Jaime. Are you staying on the screen, Jaime, or will you take it yourself?
Oh, yes, you can keep the screen. Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Well, I wanted to recall the big contribution from Paul Mueller and the task group on enhanced radar positioning. One of the activities in this group is actually the comprehension of the performances of radar in BC Harbor, and the main job of Paul and the group and the task group was to make some awareness about this and to contact other bodies outside IALA as CERN and ETSI, who are European standardization bodies, as well as the German Waterways Agency, to look at updates on the work in this area. I would like to also recall the paper INAF 2013.11 on Recon in BC Harbor. It's a paper from February 2017, and it's give an overview of a test placing a Racon acting also as a receiver. So they were able to measure the pulses of the radar in the neighborhoods from onboard ships, and through this study, they were able to provide the performances of these radars. So what the number of pulses they receive it's the previous slide. Sorry, Simon. Previous slide. Simon.
We need to go one slide back.
Yes, one slide back, please.
And then one, yeah, that.
Back.
No.
So.
Here.
Yes. So in these two positions, and while the paper explain the causes of the poor Racon performances in these two places in Singapore, but also proposed mitigation measure at the end to improve the performances of the radar. So I really welcome you to give another overview to this paper. And with this background, Paul Mueller and the task group was able to contact through different liaison notes, external liaison notes to CIRM, to HCTG Marine, who is the task group dealing with standardization for solid state radars, and proposing these causes of poor performances, but also the mitigation measure. On the other side, IALA also expressed his interest to participate in the development of such standards, and in parallel, inside IALA, there has been proposed some liaison note to ARM to review the IALA policy on the use of AIS and Racons as marking voice, but also liaison note to the industrial member committee, inviting the Racon manufacturers to participate on this standardization on Racon and radar standard. So next slide, please. Simon, next slide, please.
We have the next one.
It has shifts. We are now looking at the enhanced radar positioning liaison notes, Jamie, if it's slow at your end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, the other part of the pie also deal by Paul Mueller and the group was as part of this study on Racon and radar positioning is this quietly new system, the enhanced radar positioning, and providing liaison notes to other external and internal committees in IALA. So, as you may know, I want also to suggest two lectures, the INAF 21 with the Singapore Air Radar and Air Racon Sea trials, but also the papers presented in the IALA conference 2018. As you all know, the Air Racons provide absolute positioning, encoding so the Air Racon is at shore side, and he provides the absolute positioning to the radar, to the Air radar, which is on board the ship. And using this signal, the ship is able to calculate totally in independence of GNSS means his position, and so the navigation solution at the end. So in the same way of the officer of the watch is using the radar azimuth and the ship speed through the log through the log equipment and the heading through the gyro equipment, he will be able to compute the position on hand, but here in an automatic way and with the Air Racon at shore and the radar on board the ship. It has been demonstrated that being independent to GNSS, it also a cost-effective way because there are already this equipment at shore and on board the ship. So having this in mind, the group is now developing the guideline on the use of enhanced raycons, and in order to support the service provision scheme, the service provision and the interoperability between manufacturers, but also he wants to be engaged with CIRM and Industrial Member Committee in order to standardize the enhanced radar positioning. And also, of course, fostering this new system among IALA members and outside the IALA. So thank you very much, Simon. I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Annie. Very interesting and exciting developments there on PNT coming from Working Group 3. So now just taking a quick look at the current work plan in the Engineering and Sustainability Committee. We are sort of we're 3/4 of the way through the work plan, and looking at it by working group. So here we have those relevant to Working Group 1, light and vision, and we're looking at leading lights, LED technologies. Produced a good guideline on retroreflective materials, thanks to Jürgen here. Light measurement, as we've heard, and degradation of color is another interesting topic, as how you measure that and when you decide it's come out of the specification. On Working Group 2, we are looking at ACE navigation in extreme climates, maintenance of ATOL structures, a really interesting guideline coming through on marine solar panels. It's very easy to go and buy a solar panel from your local shop, but it, in our experience, doesn't last well in the marine environment. So this is a good guidance for users and manufacturers. So if you want to buy a solar panel that will last you 20 years, this guideline will give you some guidance on how to do that. New guideline coming through on floating ATON. We're looking at climate change monitoring and radar reflection. Now back into Working Group 3, and as we've heard of some of these, resilient position, navigation and timing is very much on our agenda here. And R-mode development, this is positioning, a new resilient positioning system that is being developed. Michelle Hoffler taking the lead there. The RACON standards, as we've just heard from Heine, timing and synchronization guideline. SBAS, this is augmentation system for GNSS, and differential GNSS overview and strategy, and product specification maintenance for ERAM in GNSS. And Working Group 4, Heritage and Legacy, we have the Heritage Lighthouse of the Year Award, which is taken off and is now embedded in our calendar, and the development of the Heritage Lighthouse website. This year we had plans, we all had plans this year, didn't we, for various workshops, and one on cybersecurity, big topic, as everything is becoming more and more vulnerable to cyber attack. And also ATON engineering was to be held in Australia, a heritage seminar in Brazil, but sadly all these three have been cancelled because of the COVID. But we did have a successful R-mode development workshop in Saint-Germain-en-Laye early last year, which worked well. So that's really a roundup of the working and recent outputs from the Engineering and Sustainability Committee. And I'm now going to hand over to Heine, I think. Will you talk us through the dates, please?
Yes. The next dates to have in mind, of course, is the deadline for the submission of input papers, of course, and at the discretion of Simon. They could be approved after this deadline, but preferably we would like to stick to this 22 of February, which is the deadline. And as you can see in the calendar, the meeting are being scheduled from the 22 March and 19 April. We would like to ask the task group leaders and the working group chairs to submit his proposal, a schedule of meetings to be able to share it with the world participants. And in this sense, we will be updating the calendar through the next week. So just have it in mind in order to schedule the following month. Enough is completely now well, there are some meetings from working group 1 of enough scheduled, but and we have to fill in all the dates for the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you. And now that brings us on to questions. Can they come through, Roman?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you to the speakers for your presentation and very interesting information. And also, I have to thank all the committee participants for the work that they have done, that has gone into these papers. I know that there's how much work goes into a document before it can be published. Somebody is speaking, and that is a good sign, because I have seen no questions in the chat, and I would like to encourage everybody to ask questions if you have anything you want to know, if something is not quite clear, if you have looked through the documents and you just cannot understand what they mean, these engineers. Sometimes they are a bit engineers are not the best communicators in the world, I have heard, being one myself. But hopefully we have been able to make the message clear in these documents or messages. I see no hands or no nothing. Okay, so let me see. Yeah. My card is asking something. This is my card, who is the former Deputy Secretary General of IALA, and currently representing an industrial member in various committees. And Mike is asking whether Paul Mueller is continuing with the task group, because he is retired and his company, I think, has come to a close. So, Simon, can you enlighten us on the future of Paul Mueller in this work?
I can't actually give a direct answer. Paul was very active at N12, and I know he was hoping to continue work on the radar positioning with IALA, but he will need obviously he needs employment, so I'm not exactly sure where he is. But I have it in my mind to email him. I have his personal email, so I will endeavour to. And we hope he will continue, because he has great expertise in that field.
Yeah. Yeah, he is one of very few experts we have in this field of raycons and radars. So we really hope that he is able to continue. There is, thank you, and Simon, he says, congratulations, a good webinar, Mike. Thank you for that, Mike. Now there's a question from India. Dr. V. Susindran is asking, it's not quite clear exactly what he's asking about, but he says divergence angle of lighthouse formula. And this must be something for you, Malcolm.
Yeah, I expect it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Vertical or horizontal is the question. You need horizontal divergence so you can calculate your flash. Vertical divergence.
Yeah, it would be vertical, I would guess.
Vertical divergence. Well, essentially, It's the height of the light source and the height of the lens in radians. So the height of the light source divided by the height of the lens divided by 57.3 will probably give you some kind of an answer. Let me try and find it while you're all talking, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
1065 is the IALA guideline that you'll be looking for. And if I can find it while you're all talking.
So, Dr. Susindran, you qualified your question a little bit by talking about the divergence of light, of course, but are you asking about the actual background for the formula, or what is the question? You can take the floor with the microphone and everything if you like.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. I would like to know exact calculation for calculating a divergence angle of a light, both vertical as well as horizontal divergence.
Okay. Did you get that, Malcolm?
I caught bits of it. I can give you the exact formula, but it may be easier if you go to the IALA website and download IALA guideline 1065 on aids to navigation signal light beam vertical divergence, and you will find everything that you need to know within there.
Yeah. So what we can offer you is, if you have any questions about the like the background for the formula, then if you would like to contact us after the webinar, we can by email, for example, or something. We can have a discussion on that. Are there any other questions on any of the topics that we have raised today, or any other topic, by the way? Let me see. There's something here. Jamie is asking about. Okay, this is the. You're giving the information about the document wherein this formula is written. Okay. Well, I see no raised hands or no questions except from India, which we will deal with. If you just hang on, Dr. Susindran, we will stay behind and have a discussion with you on this. So I will then proceed to close this webinar, again, thank you to the speakers and to the committees or the engineering committee for their tremendous work on this, and we will certainly be looking forward to. Could somebody mute? Well, maybe. There we are. Yes. We will be looking forward to the future work of the committee, outputs of the committee, and you clearly have a great work plan, and we have all these workshops, by the way, and seminars that we hope to be able to conduct in anytime soon, given the situation with the pandemic. The next webinar in the series will be on the 23rd of February, in just a moment, maybe next week, yeah. And it will be about the results of the work of the VTS committee, Vessel Traffic Service Committee. Apart from thanking the presenters, I would like to thank everybody that showed up here. About 50 people attended live, which is fine. And I hope to see you at future webinars. And I hope that you found the information provided interesting and useful. And also, I wish for you that you and your loved ones can steer clear of the COVID-19, and yeah, remember to keep your distance and keep well. So I hereby declare the webinar closed. Thank you. So we will be staying